What's up, everybody? I took the week off, so that's why I'm streaming now. Wanted to look at the market. It's always fun to kind of look at things on a live stream. It just makes it more, I guess, enjoyable. Sometimes, like when you're looking at things by yourself, it gets a little boring. So, a little banter back and forth. The webcam doesn't seem to be working. This is the camera on my computer, so I think it's clear, but I don't think you can see my whole face. But whatever. Let's see how the market's doing. Top gainers. I always like to look at top gainers each day and top losers. Reshape Life Sciences up 58%, 2 million market cap. These really small companies, this is what happens sometimes when there's like there's an article, there's a news story, there's a big price change. CureVac, 1.26 billion. That's not a small company, up 37%. I can't say I'm too familiar with CureVac, CVAC. It's a foreign company. .NV. Hey, let me look at Simply Wall Street. CVAC. This is how you learn about companies. CureVac. Okay, it's a German company. So .NV, N.V, NV after a company name. Okay, the term N.V refers to an acronym for the Dutch phrase. I can't say that word. So I guess it's a German company. Okay. CureVac is a biopharmaceutical company focusing on developing various transformative medicines based on messenger ribonucleic. Let's see if there's any other big gainers for the day. Oracle up 14%. That's a big company, 560 billion market cap. It's a little over $500 billion. Oracle. Let's see if there's any big movers. Let's see. Applied Optoelectronics, 1 billion market cap. Genius Sports Limited up 6%. Sezzle. MP Materials, I've heard of that company. Credo Technology. There's so many companies. It's funny how like every day I learn about a new company. Darling Ingredients. Rigetti Computing. That was like a meme stock at one point. That had a lot of volatility. Let's see if there's some losers. And throw out a ticker. We can do a DCF on any stock or look into the financials of any stock. GameStop is down 19%. It's still 10 billion market cap. GME. That was like the mother of the meme stocks, right? GameStop. That blew up in 2021. And we all knew it was going to pull back, but it did pull back, but then I never got back to its low levels. So maybe it's not as bad as we thought. Let's see. Let's look at their revenue. So 2022, $6 billion of revenue. It's not too shabby. The forecast is $2.5 billion by 2028. So the revenue forecast is declining, which is a reason why the stock is going down. So their most recent revenue was $3.7 billion. That was as of May 2nd for the trailing 12 months. Let's see if there's any Karu down 18%. Diginex Equinox, the gold company, up down 7% today. Satara, Circle Internet Group. This was a stocks we actually looked at. We did a DCF on. It was 108 when we did that DCF. Let's take a look at it. Circle Internet Group. So this operates as a platform network and market infrastructure for stablecoin and blockchain applications. So if you want to get exposure into crypto, this would be a good choice because they work with stablecoin, which is pegged to the US dollar. Hello? Hello? Let's see Simply Wall Street. Simply Wall Street at $65. That's their forecast, even though it's trading at 117. So they're saying it's overvalued. Let's just look at the data on the DCF to see how they came up with that. So their future free cash flow forecasts is $370 million for 2025, up to $1 billion in 2034. Let's look at their past performance. So they will almost no revenue before 2022. I mean, real low. 9 million in 2019, 15 million in 2020. But it's over almost 2 billion currently as of the trailing 12 months. So their revenue has grown a lot. Let's look at operating cash flow is positive. That's a really good sign. Same thing with free cash flow. This could be an interesting play. It kind of moves with crypto. Let's see, the CEO salary $900K. Jeremy Allaire, that's the CEO of the company. Let's see if we get some information on him. Do you guys have a look at the CEO? Look at their background. He's CEO and founder of the digital currency company Circle and chairman of the board of Brightcove with his brother J.J. Allaire. He is co-founder of Allaire Corporation in 1995. Allaire was chief technical officer of Macromedia. This is a really interesting play on crypto. Huh. Does anybody follow this company, Circle? Circle Internet Group? I guess it just moves with crypto, but they're really focused on stablecoin. It doesn't look like they're focused on Bitcoin. But let me know in the comments what you guys think of this company. Circle. He was part of a Lair Corporation, which looks like it's a public company. What is your take on the Forgotten Era? B. Dory. Finding B. Dory. Can you hear me clearly? I mean, can you see me also clearly? Because my webcam was not working. BDORY. There's no ticker or company name BDORY. There is a. What is BDORY? Banco do Brasil? No. Amplify Commodity Trust? Actually, I don't. Banco do Brasil. Actually, my first job. Was that my first job? No, my second job. I used to do lending to Brazilian banks, and Banco do Brasil was one of the banks we lent to. So I would have to go through their financials to make sure they were good enough credit risk when we lent to them, because I was lending to mainly Brazilian and Turkish banks. So I still remember a bunch of the banks in Turkey and Brazil. Banco do Brasil is one of the bigger. 50%. That's pretty sweet. That's a good return. Banks are generally good investments, especially when you pick a bank that controls a country, because Brazil is not the strongest economy. It's middle of the road. It's not a risky economy like, say, Colombia, but it's a good enough risk factor where you would invest. That's why we do. There are a bunch of companies that we invest in, Brazilian companies. I invest in Nubank, the Brazilian fintech, but you would rarely see a Colombian company that trades in the U.S. I'm not picking on Colombia, but there's a lot of countries like that are just really high credit risks. Like, you would rarely see a Turkish company trading in the U.S. Lots of countries you would not see, but you do see a decent amount of Brazilian companies. Yeah, that was when I used to work in insurance industry. But Banco do Brasil is a good investment. I think it's a good investment because it's such an important part of the economy in Brazil. And without them, there would not be as much liquidity. Because what do banks do? Well, the obvious, you store money in a bank for safety purposes, but the main thing a bank does, it lends, right? That's kind of the purpose of a bank. That's like their business model, is that to give banking 101. So you have, a number of people, could be hundreds, thousands, millions of people who put money into a bank because they want to keep it safe and they want to earn a little interest. Some banks like JP Morgan have trillions. So maybe a bank like this maybe have 300 billion of deposits from various people. And what does the bank do with that money? Well, it lends it back out. It gives it back to people who want to buy a home, a car, who need to maybe send their kids to college. So banks take in money from depositors and then they lend it out. So maybe they'll take in 300 billion and pay a 2% interest rate, and then they lend that money back out and charge 8%. And that's how they make money on the spread. So they get 6%. And some people default. Some people don't pay back their loan. So they won't get this entire 8%. Maybe 2% will default. So so they lose 2%. So they end up, instead of that 6% spread, they get a 4% profit. That's a kind of a simplified way banks operate. Of course, banks do borrow money from the government too, because sometimes deposits are not enough to fund the loans. So they take money. In the U.S., you take money from the U.S. Treasury, or there's other types of debt instruments. But so that's banking 101. But let's look at the company Banco do Brasil. I think they're the biggest bank in. Are they? I think they might be owned by the Brazilian government. Biggest banks in Brazil. I'm pretty sure I remember Itaú was a bank, Banco Unibanco, Nubank, fintech, Banco Bradesco. Yeah, we did lend to Banco Bradesco. Itaú, how come that's not showing up? Here it is, Itaú, Unibanco Holding, Santander, Banco do Brasil. Itaú is right here. But this is what I do when I first learn about a company. I visit them on like a Wikipedia page or something like that, just to understand them on a more basic level before I dig into understand how long they've been around, what companies they've acquired, just to understand them before I get into it's kind of like when you buy a car. The first thing you want to do, you look at the car, like, do I like it? Is it a nice color? Is it stylish? Things like that. But before you go beneath the hood of the car, you want to understand it from a more like 10,000 foot level. Unfortunately, most of us can't look beneath the hood and figure out if the car is in good condition. So we hire a mechanic. But we're the mechanics in this case, trying to get beneath the hood of the company and learn about their financials. But they've been around probably well over 216 years. So they've been around longer than pretty much any U.S. company has been around. I mean, 1808, that's a long time. Huh. I'm surprised they don't list acquisitions on here. International users. Banco Brazil has a few branches in the U.S. I'm sure they have many people in the U.S., but that rarely drops to a buy. You do have Itaú also? Are you in Brazil? Because not many people would own Itaú or even this company. Banco do Brasil. It might be a little hard. They're a pretty big company, so they're going to have information in English. Smaller foreign companies may not. I don't like non-US financials. I feel like I have a harder time reading them. 6 years ago and earned a lot. 2 years ago, I looked for another big Brazilian bank. It's a good country, Brazil, because it's not super risky like certain countries, like in the Middle East. You wouldn't invest in Iran. Really risky, but you get a good return. The higher the risk, the better return, but you don't want to go too high risk when nobody invests in that company. Result Center. I guess let's just go to Simply Wall Street to learn about the financials. Banco do Brasil. And the Brazilian the currency is it looks like reals, but it's pronounced with like an H. And every time I say it, I remember when I did videos, people got confused. It's actually I think like one Brazilian currency is a real. Is it still? It used to be 20 to 1. What's the conversion? I remember when I went there, it was 20 to 1. Okay, it's 18 to 1. It's reais. 18 to 1. So $1 US equals 5.5 Brazilian reais. Yeah, it's 0.18. Let's just, out of curiosity, so Simply Wall Street's at 24. Usually they're pretty stable banks. They're not as volatile as most other stocks. They usually pay a pretty good dividend. So they're saying they're 10% undervalued. Let's look at the revenue. So 53 billion, but that's in the Brazilian currency, the reais. What's a good so it's actually 9.6. I'll just divide by 6. I think that's the easiest way to do it. So whatever these numbers are, if you want to know what they are in US dollars, just divide by 6. So the peak was 106 billion reais. So the forgotten era, are you Brazilian? Is that how you would say it? Reais? That's what I was told when I did research to find out how to say the currency correctly. I think it's spelled REAIS, the currency. But the way it sounds, reais, because the R is, we don't pronounce the R. So am I saying that correctly? 53 billion reais. They actually, yeah, that's very impressive. They broke through 100 billion. But remember, we're dividing by 6. So it's like, what is it, like 16 billion? $19 billion. Okay. So it's about 19 billion US dollars. That was their peak in revenue. And that was in September 2024. So you can see they've done pretty well. COVID, I mean, they were pretty much flatlined from 2014 to 2020. They really peaked. So it seems like a pretty good stable, but it's a lot harder to value banks. So a little more tricky. You're down 50% on Cosan and Vale, but long term, not too worried about it. That's how you should look long term. But Cosan, let's look at Cosan. So you guys like the Brazilian companies? I mean, it's a good commodity play. I mean, Vale is a great company. Vale, I think they're number one. They're the largest producer of iron ore and nickel in the world. And they're like top 5 in a lot of metals: bauxite, potash, cobalt. They're I've done a bunch of videos when I compare, like the three giants are Vale, BHP, and Rio Tinto. Those are the three. They pretty much control the metals market. Let me show you this website. Business Quant. I use this site a lot to get data. Okay. Forget about it. I mean, it's taking forever. I don't know why it takes so long. It's so slow. God. Just what industry is Vale in? Is it in other industrial metals? I don't think so. Forget about this site. But it generally trades at a much lower. It generally trades at a pretty steep discount, Vale, because it's in Brazil. Even though even though they generate just as much revenue and cash flow as the other two big companies. Okay. God, so slow. Okay, so Vale market cap, we'll try to keep it in US dollars. So 41 billion US dollars. Vale is in a bunch of stuff. Yeah, I mean they're in a ton of stuff. But what's everybody's like? What's your favorite of the three? Vale, BHP, or Rio Tinto? Let's look at the dividend. They're probably paying them 8.9%. That's the thing. They usually pay a huge dividend because the stock is so cheap. BHP, they're also the Australian company. $129 billion, so they're triple the size. I'm sure they're only 3.9%. I wonder why this doesn't work. I don't know why this Rio. Okay, so that's 100 billion. So that's 38 billion US dollars. Let's see BHP. BHP is 54 billion. And what's Rio? Is that right? The same? $53.9 billion. That's amazing. They're really close. So Vale, you can see their price to sales ratio is 1.1, which is more than twice as good as BHP. BHP is 2.4. Because even though revenue for Vale is lower, that's 38 billion compared to the other two companies, their market cap is much smaller. So that's why their price sales is much better, and they have a high dividend. Do you anticipate the dollar depreciating against the real? That's always a factor. Looking for a buy. Generally over time, yeah, I would expect it to, but I would look at historical, and that may give you a little more information. How do you real compared to the US dollar? So in 2020, it was about 5. And then it seems like the resistance was about 5.7, 5.8. Because it always came down and then back up. It never really got past 5.8. Well, it came real low. What was the reason? Does anybody know the reason it came so low in 2022? Well below 5, 4.7. And then it finally broke through the resistance point in October 2024. The 5.8 seemed to be like a ceiling for a number of years. And then it got past 6. So yeah, so historically, I would think the U.S. dollar would strengthen against the Brazilian real, but there's an arbitrage with foreign equities, though, if you know what you're doing. Yeah, I generally would avoid trading foreign currency. Ironically, my very first job in the early 90s, I did foreign currency trading. I was an intern, so it's not like I knew what I was doing, at Credit Suisse. Actually, it was at First Boston, and then they merged with Credit Suisse, so it was Credit Suisse First Boston. And a little history: my very first week working as an intern was when the World Trade Center it got bombed. Not in 2001. It was in 1993. World Trade Center bombing. Not many people remember that. My very first week working, it was in. I worked in 5 World Trade Center at the time, but the bomb, I think it was on 2 World Trade Center. It was in the basement. Either 1 or 2. It was in the basement of the World Trade Center. Somebody planted a bomb. Yeah, then in 2001, I did not work in the World Trade Center. I worked in Midtown at the time. 93 World Trade Center bombing was terrorist attack carried out by Ramzi Youssef. Okay, yeah. A van bomb, now it's coming back, detonated below the North Tower of the World Trade Center complex. Was intended to make the North Tower collapse and the South Tower. So, of course, 8 people died, which is tragic, of course, for the families of those 8 people, but not even close to the magnitude of the 2001 bombing. 6 deaths. I'm really bad at my facts. 6 deaths. Why did I think it was 8? It just caused more of a headache because we had to evacuate the buildings. There wasn't, unless you were close to the bombing, it didn't really affect you, besides some smoke, which was a little annoying. In March 1994, 4 men were convicted of carrying out the bombing. I wonder why I thought there was 8. That's so weird. I could have sworn it was 8 people. Yeah, so that's a predecessor to the 2001 bombing. And I think in retaliation, George Bush Sr. invaded, I think, Afghanistan. And then in 2001, in retaliation for us invading their country, in 2001, that's when the planes hit. And George Bush Jr. was the president at the time. So I worked in 5 World Trade Center, which wasn't really affected in 1993. But in 2001, 5 World Trade Center was it didn't collapse, but it was knocked down because there was too much damage to it from the 2001 attacks. Because in 2001, towers 1 and 2 fell down. World Trade Center 7 also fell from debris from 1 and 2. And then I think 2 World Financial Center collapsed, also from debris from the 2 towers, if I have my facts. And then of course, because there's 7 World Trade Centers, buildings 1 through 7. So buildings 3, 4, 5, and 6 didn't actually fall from the planes hitting, but there was too much damage to them, so they ended up knocking those down. Bush, the Gulf War masters, haha. But anyways, yeah, but I usually don't focus too much on currency prices, because it's like anything. Like, how do you really know? How can you predict the stuff? And if that was a main concern of yours, which it could be, then I'd just say avoid investing in foreign stocks if you're concerned about the foreign currency risk. But it's hard to know what direction. But generally, it's a pretty good currency. Brazil. That's why we do invest in Brazilian companies. That's why there are publicly traded companies in the U.S. that we invest in, because Brazil is a stable enough economy for us to invest in. But there's tons of countries that you would never see traded in the U.S. because there's just way too much risk and volatility, and no one wants to take on that risk. But what's going on in the market today? Is there any the market news today? S&P rebounds. Oracle leads. Yeah, Oracle is up a lot. Why is Oracle up so much? Oracle. Did they release earnings? They must have released earnings for Oracle's price target raised to 225 from 200 at UBS. Oracle Q4 earnings. Ellison criticizes Salesforce over product integration. So that looks like that price target. I like Oracle. I've never invested in Oracle. I don't know why, but the Oracle of Omaha. So it's at 176, and it looks like a UBS analyst raised their target to 225, which is GSK. GlaxoSmithKline is flying for me. Reversal of trend over the last month. UBS raises target on Oracle to 225 from 200 on Thursday while maintaining a buy rating on the stock amid strong growth indicators. The stock currently trading at 52-week high. The firm cited significant backlog growth as a key factor in its decision, noting the company is projecting 100% backlog growth to over $275 billion in fiscal year 2026. I could see them having a ton of revenue, a ton of backlog. Backlog just means like orders, people who want something, who are waiting. And it doesn't always mean they're out of product. Like, to give you an example, say 2024 revenue, I'm just saying for any company, this example is 1 billion, right? Backlog is like orders. So people placed orders. And they might have $500 million of backlog orders in the pipeline. That doesn't mean that they don't have, this company doesn't have the inventory, or they don't have the resources to make the products. This just means that people put in orders, because there's some companies that may want, say, 100 million of product, but they want it over 10 years because they can't take it all at once. So maybe they want 10 million a year over 10 years. So part of the backlog is those 10 years of orders. And other companies may be in that situation too. But that's a good indicator of demand and future revenue. The thing is, if there's backlog, if there's orders, say, there could be a huge order by, say, a Google. They say, I want $1 billion of your product, but in the year of 2030, when we develop something else. So there is a risk, of course, with a backlog that doesn't come to fruition. Like that $1 billion order, they change it. But generally, when someone places a PO, a purchase order, it's usually it's much more likely to happen than just someone just saying, "Oh yeah, I want XYZ." So they were raised. The target was raised by UBS. Was there anything else besides that? I mean, it's up like 15%, right, today? It peaked at 190. It's getting close to its peak. It really came down. In April, it came down to 120. Great time to pick it up. But when it was 190, how do you know when to pick it up? Do you buy it when it falls to 170, 150? I mean, how would you know the bottom is 120? That's the problem. As earnings, revenue, top estimates. Buy it when it hits the 200 daily moving average. Oracle reported results that exceeded estimates for the previous quarter. She said the company will likely deliver more revenue projected last year. Well, that's Larry Ellison. That looks like a friend of mine. I didn't realize that was Larry Ellison. Yeah, so they had good earnings. Generally, what people do is they buy when it hits its all-time high. That's what most people do, is they buy. Oh, that's Rio Tinto. Because most people don't know about a stock, or they don't or they know about it, but there's not much people talking about it until it surges. And then a lot of people talking about it. And then all the gurus come out and say, oh, this is amazing. Oracle's doing great. I could see it getting to 300 a share. And then there's a lot more kind of information coming out when it goes real high. And then when it comes down, when it starts regressing, then people are shitting on it, saying, oh, the Oracle really struggling, demand doesn't look so good, because they want to validate their reasons. I could see Oracle coming down to even the 90s, below 100. And then everybody shits on it. So generally people buy at the high points because everyone's talking about it, saying positive things. And when you hear someone saying a positive thing that you consider an expert, you're like, oh, okay, I got to buy it. And then when people start shitting on it, then people sell. So usually people buy when it's real high, sell when it's real low, because they kind of follow what others say. And that's why most people lose money. My take is just ignore what people say and buy and hold. Even if you buy at a peak, which I did, like with Google, I kind of screwed up. I wanted to get into Google. When did I buy Google? It was in February 2022. It was right before they did a split. I wish they made this chart easy to read. It's a little hard to read. So in February 2022, so I got it at 146. So I got it up here in February, right? And then I was down like 10, 15%. Then it started coming back and I was almost even again. And this is April 2022. And then I was down like 40% by the end of 2022. I was like, why did I buy Google? Because it was pretty much at its all-time high when I bought it. But I thought it would surge after the split. But so February 2022, February 2023. So almost 2 years I had to wait to get back to my original buy-in price. But I just didn't sell because I mean, I knew Google's a good company. I knew it would come back. And I was up about 80 or so percent in the beginning of this year. So I'm like, okay, finally I'm showing some results. You know, it's easy to look at on a chart, but when you're living it day in, day out, it gets a little like you feel like you're stupid. Like, oh my God, I wasted money. Why did I put money in harm's way? I should have just invested in something more. But it's Google. Like if you buy a penny stock or you buy a small cap stock and you lose money, you're like, yeah, I deserve it. You know, I took the risk. But with Google, I'm like, you know, I'm down 40%. I thought this was such a great company. And it did regress because that's just how stocks do it. When it goes up a lot, people take in their profits. It's always going to be that way. The higher stock goes, the less appealing it is. And then especially the big funds, they take in their profits, and then there's a sell-off. It goes down, and then when it goes down 5-10%, and you see a big fund selling off their stock, then other people start selling. But it never got back to below I was at 146. So it looks like it did get back to exactly my buy-in price, 146. But that's kind of the resistance level at this point. So unless the company goes out of business, which I know it won't, I'm pretty much going to be in the positive going forward with Google. The floor is kind of in the 140s at this point, and it's coming back. Now it's in the 170s. Tobacco is a trick like oil. Altria has been doing really well since it was deeply hated and oversold its bond-like qualities. Yeah, Altria is a good company. Just that risk of people don't like vice stocks, tobacco, gambling, cannabis, but it's just such a profitable company. The thing is, the tough part is with a company like this, if you buy at a bad point, it could take a long time. Like 2006 was the peak. So you're still 18 years later, you're still down quite a bit from 2006. You did receive a good amount of dividends. It could take a long time because you see, like, overall the stock, it goes up and down, up and down. It's a great company. It should go up overall. But if you look at a really good company, Altria is a really good company, but if you look at a really good company, it just goes up overall. Like, if you hold Microsoft for at least 5 years, you're going to make money. You know, obviously, if you buy at a great price point, you make a ton of money. If you buy at a bad price point, you make a little money, but you're going to make money on a really good stock, like the Metas and those types of stocks. But Altria, it is not going to, overall, it doesn't move like a really good company like it should. Modern day crypto is here to stay. So I kind of wish I got more into crypto. But I probably would avoid most crypto assets because I just don't, there's like, what is it? how many crypto? What is like 100,000 cryptocurrencies? Okay, so there's 10,000 cryptocurrencies. I thought there was more at one point. So there's 10,000 currencies. How many fiat currencies are there? Probably like 1,000, maybe less. 130. Okay, there's 180 countries, and there's 130 currencies. So 130 currencies in the world. The US dollar, the British pound, Japanese yen. And that makes sense because there's 180. Okay, there's 180 currencies recognized as legal tender in the UN. However, excluding the pegged. Okay, that makes sense. So exclude the pegged ones because those aren't what you buy things with. Those are just more like investing tools. So there's about 100. I think there's 180 countries. How many countries? It's in the low 180s, I believe. 195. 195 countries, 130 currencies. So if you go to a country like Canada, you buy things with Canadian dollars. If you go to the US, you buy things with US dollars. Europe kind of has their thing going on where a lot of countries use the euro. I always wanted a world currency where there's one currency and the whole world uses it, but like crypto, like 10,000 currencies, and you don't even use them for anything. Like the whole point of a currency is to buy things, right? So you could buy food, you could buy a car, but you don't even use these cryptos to buy things. It's just more for trading. I think at some point it will start to be used a lot more, like Bitcoin. But I would stay away from anything outside the top 10. It just seems like a waste. But I think it's here to stay. Bitcoin, it's going to go up and up. It'll probably be millions. One Bitcoin will be several million, because you can cut it up infinitely, right? Which is a nice thing. Like one Bitcoin. Even, I wonder why these, it's always even though it's $100,000 for one Bitcoin, you can use half a Bitcoin. If you want to buy a car, $50,000, you could use half a Bitcoin. If you want to buy something a lot cheaper, you could use a tenth of a Bitcoin, $10,000. So it's infinitely, you can. So just because we're pretty much at the maximum level of number of Bitcoins that are going to be traded. If each Bitcoin is worth $1 million or $10 million, you can just cut it up into pieces. You don't have to use one Bitcoin. But it's still not really used much in terms of for buying things. But obviously there's the demand for it is there, and that's what Actually, what was I saying? But what do you guys trade? Do you guys trade besides Bitcoin? Do you guys use Ethereum, Tether, any of the 2 trillion market cap? So it's still smaller than the biggest U.S. companies. But what's the market cap of the U.S. dollar? Like a quadrillion? United States market cap accounted for Tether. A Tether is the is pegged to the U.S. dollar. BNB. I'm not even familiar with BNB. What the hell is BNB? USDC is pegged to the US dollar. I guess so is Tether. No. I mean, look at all these. There's so many. Uniswap, Pi, Kronos. It's crazy how many there are. I guess a lot of people created Bitcoin, created crypto, just to kind of make a little money. Mogcoin, Jupiter Perps. This should be like what's the funniest naming cryptocurrency asset out there? Yeah, I wouldn't own. What is Harry Potter, Obama, Sonic 10 Inu, Bitcoin, 89 million market cap. Dogs. What's Doge? Doge is 18 cents. Okay. It was getting up there. Doge was I remember when Elon went on Saturday Night Live, it got close to 70 cents. I thought it was getting close to that point, like not 70. I thought it was getting like to 40% at one point. Let's see. Oh, it was. It almost hit 50 cents at the end of 2024. The peak was, yeah, when he was on SNL, it got to, it's hard to tell. I think, yeah, 73 cents at the peak. And then it came way down. To below 10 cents. It's almost like comical. It's almost like it's not even real. It's just like kind of like watching a movie. You know, like if you watch a TV show and then I don't know if you do this anymore, but I remember when like Seinfeld was a TV show, you'd watch it and the next day you would talk to your friends or your coworkers about it and you would laugh and talk about different scenes. That's how I feel like this is. Like it's like this is not real. It is real money, and some people have their lives, their life savings in this. But it's almost like a game. Like look at this. Like it was 50 cents, then it went to 15 cents. It's just like a kind of like a joke, like a pastime. But yeah, sure. There's no intrinsic value. There's no intrinsic value for Bitcoin. Like, we know this. But there's no intrinsic value for the US dollar. I mean, it's not like you could take the US dollar and turn it into like a meal. I understand you can use it to buy things, but let's just say you lived in the mountains, right? You lived like away from society, like there's nobody around you. You were stuck in on top of a mountain, and you had no way of getting down to where people live, and you had a briefcase with millions of dollars in it of cash. You couldn't do anything with that money. Like, it's not like you could start eating it and it would nourish you, or you can take that and then buy like heating. You can turn into heating lamps. You can't do anything with the money. The money doesn't do anything. Only you need to get to someone to trade that money for something, which you wouldn't be able to do if you were stuck on the top of a mountain. Same thing with Bitcoin. There's no intrinsic value in these things. It's just what is someone else willing to give you for it. That's the value in these things. And when if I have $1,000 US, there's a ton of people out there that are willing to do something that will give me something for it. Like, if I have $1,000 and I offer it to someone, they will do a lot of things I ask. They'll clean my house. They'll buy me something. They'll actually go to the store and buy me something. There's value there. So there's really no intrinsic value in these things, but there are a lot of people that are saying there's value in it. A lot of people, and they're saying it's 100K of value for just one of them. So that's what everything is predicated on: supply and demand. What someone else is saying it's worth. But will it hold up? Will it in the future? Also more fungible, since you don't need a computer to transact it. Don't get me wrong, I'm not anti-Bitcoin. I just think the US dollar has more. Well, of course, yeah, definitely the US dollar. Just like sometimes when you go into another country, they rather take the US dollar than their own currency. Like, it's more valuable to them. They feel more comfortable taking the US dollar than their own actual currency. So yeah, the US dollar is extremely valuable, and that won't change. Bitcoin is extremely valuable, and it's getting more valuable. But I mean, remember what's his name? Not Buffett. Charlie Munger. He really bashed it. Good afternoon. I want to thank you for your work. I watch your stock analysis and always look forward to new ones. Very often they are accurate. Okay. Thanks, Gregory. Appreciate it. But yeah, it's kind of funny looking at these Cardano, Hyperliquid. But a lot of people making money on this stuff. But it's same thing with companies. A lot of people have convinced. Remember that woman, the Theranos woman, who became a billionaire, Elizabeth Holmes. she convinced a lot of smart people that the product she was making had value, and it was worthless. I've It's really interesting. Her so you know how like you give blood, so you have to give a decent amount of blood in order for them to test things. So maybe they'll test whether you have Alzheimer's, or they test whether you took a certain drug in the past, or they'll test whatever it may be. You give blood to do a lot of things, but she said you don't need to give so much blood, just a little prick of the finger, and it runs through her machine, and it tells you. But it was all made up. But she happened to convince people, and she became a billionaire. But will Bitcoin be the same thing? What was truly useless? NFTs. Yeah, that was a big. NFTs. That was a big waste. Do people? I haven't even heard people talk about NFTs too much. It's so stupid. Some of these things. NFT is still a thing. Yes, but not in a way many expected during the 2021 mania. NFTs have evolved from digital collectibles to versatile tools solving real-world problems across industries. NFTs lost a lot of popularity. I think now that they're using it for a functional purpose, which people can't make as much money on. But the core users of technology still believe in the capability, so adoption has plateaued in 2023 because people were trading this stuff. Like they were buying NFTs of like the first tweet, an NFT of the first tweet. And I get collectibles because like if you're really into like sports, like I would find it cool if I had a baseball that was hit by Mickey Mantle. He hit a home run with this baseball. Even though like it doesn't do anything, can't do anything with that baseball. But besides, of course, sell it. It's if you take away the resale part, I would find it cool just to have it, even though because like I'm a fan of baseball. It's same thing like if you were a fan of music and your favorite musician, you had one of their maybe a bass guitar or something of theirs. It's just kind of cool. But NFTs, it was just so silly. But it's the same logic, I guess. Most expensive NFT. The most expensive NFT art sold is The Merge by Pack, which fetched $91.8 million. I remember some of these NFTs selling for millions, and then the person that bought it turned around. They tried to resell it, and no one wanted to buy it. It's like there's a sucker born every minute. But somebody told me they bought an NFT once for like $50 and sold it for thousands, and they were like so happy that they did that. What is the most expensive? $532 million. Most expensive NFT someone lost money on. So the CryptoPunk NFT, they bought for $16 million and they sold it for $10 million loss. So they sold it for $6 million. But still, who would pay $6 million for nothing? Yeah, that's kind of funny. But I wouldn't have thought the crypto would have grown to this level. There was a point in, like, 2013, 14, 15 that I really did think crypto would go to zero. I did. And now I don't. But so I'm not extremely shocked that it grew. But to this level, I'm a little surprised. Blur, is that the group, the music group? Oasis. That's Blur and Oasis. They're right next to each other. These are British pop bands. That's so funny that they're right next to each other. Is that really based on the musical group Blur? Blur crypto. Is Blur goodbye? It's like the same thing. Every single article you'll read is, and then you could type in the cryptocurrency is. I can't even say these names. Is gas a good buy? Is fast token a good buy? It's the same exact answer every single time. Like, there's no, you can't value it. There's no possible way to value it. So it's just, will somebody be dumb enough to pay you more than you bought it for? They wouldn't use the word dumb enough, but that's pretty much the answer. You know what NFTs? Okay, market. Oh, yeah, me and Victor are talking about starting a hedge fund. So I'll be right back. I'll tell you about the hedge fund in a little bit, in 1 minute. So, yeah, Victor was asking me about the hedge fund thing. He's like, why don't we just start a hedge fund? He's like, a lot of people ask me to trade. A lot of people give me their money or like they want me to trade their for them. So why don't we just start our own fund? It's an interesting idea. But you to invest in a hedge fund, like I mentioned to him, most people can't invest in a hedge fund because you have to be I think the term is a qualified investor. Is that the term? or who can invest, because you can't just take money from anybody who can invest in a hedge fund. Accredited. So you have to be an accredited investor, because there's a certain amount of risk when you invest in a hedge fund, and if anybody could invest in a hedge fund, there will be a lot of people that would be suing because they didn't realize what they were investing in. So you have to have a certain amount of net worth. Definition of a current investor: you have to have more than $1 million net worth. I think you have to, or your salary has to be above $200,000. Yeah, income over $200,000. Because when you have a certain amount of money, it doesn't mean you're a shrewd investor when you make $200,000, but it does imply that you have the funds to handle a riskier investment in case things go awry. Net worth over 1 million, excluding primary residence. Income, it doesn't have to be both. Is it or? So if you have just if you make $50,000 a year, but your net worth is over 1 million, excluding your residence, so not that many people, and reasonably expect the same for the current year. So you have to have only certain people are able to invest, and you have to sign saying, yes, I understand the risks involved. It's the same thing as trading options. If you want to trade options, you just have to tell the platform you're using, whatever it is, whether it's E-Trade or whatever brokerage you use. You have to say, I understand the risks involved, and then they'll let you trade. They just want to have kind of that liability clause in place. So that's one of the setbacks of a hedge fund is you can also qualify if you have the right certifications, like if you're a licensed broker. What do you mean, Shadow Guy? I'm talking about people who can invest into a hedge fund, not people that run hedge fund. But are you saying you can? Hey, Daryl, what's up? Are you saying you can invest in a hedge fund if you have a Series 7, even if your net worth is below $1 million? But then he mentioned, maybe we can create an ETF. I think that would be an interesting thing, because anybody can invest into an ETF. How to start an ETF? An ETF is like a mutual fund where somebody is actively buying and selling the securities that go into the ETF. So if somebody invests into the ETF SPY, then the people running that ETF take the funds and use it to buy investments in SPDRs. SPY is a little different because it's kind of there's no thinking involved. It's just buying the S&P 500. But certain ETFs, it's not as rigid. It's really, you just have to, it might be 90% of the fund has to be US stocks. Not more than 10% can be in bonds. It could be not more than X percent could be in a certain industry. So as long as you stay within those rules of the ETF, then it's fine. Yes, check the SEC's definition of accredited investor under professional criteria. Okay, I that makes sense. I was just making sure we were talking about the same thing. Yeah, I could see that where if if you have a series like 7 or 63, then you're automatically validated as a accredited investor. But it'd be kind of cool to run run the ETF. Like anybody can go onto their brokerage platform and buy into that ETF. No. List of ETFs. Because a lot of ETFs are not as like silver. They're not really doing much besides anytime the money comes in, they just invest in silver. But some of these others, there's a little more thinking involved, and so the returns can be much greater than the market is providing. Although usually that doesn't happen. Okay. I'm trying to get a smaller ETF. What? Anybody know an ETF that's like not too big, like maybe $1 billion market cap? Because I want to get like something that's ETFs are great. Same thing with mutual funds. It's good if you want to get a basket of stocks, but you don't want to like have to spend all the time buying and selling and thinking about it. And you just give your money to the person running the ETF. They take their cut and they invest in the stocks for you. Yes, check the SEC definite ProShares. But it's a good way for these companies to make money because that's they charge fees, so that's how they rake it in. Total assets. Let's look at this. The iShares US small value. iShares. So you can see like this did terrible. Its price in 2021 was pretty much flat since 2021. And the market has done much better. The market's up. It might pay dividends, so I'm not sure. Let me see if Yahoo Finance, maybe they. I want to see what's in the portfolio. Okay, here's I think E-Trade. I'll just use E-Trade because I'm used to it and I know how to find it. I don't know why I can't find it on other sites. So SVAL. So whoever runs SVAL, the company that runs SVAL, they take 20 basis points, 0.2%, which isn't too bad. That's their fee. So doesn't matter how it performs, whether it goes up or down, they take 0.2%. So just to give you net asset value, $128 million. I thought it was like 300 million. It said before. Okay, let's just go with the 128 million. It's 0.2%. Sheesh. Okay, so that's their fee, $256,000 for the year. That's how much money they make for managing this this ETF. 256,000. Did I say 256 million? Victor, what's up? I'm selling our hedge fund to everybody. You should come on the call now. So I was telling them about hedge fund. The setback is it's not everybody can invest in a hedge fund. You have to be an accredited investor. So you have to have a certain net worth and a certain salary. But if we started our own ETF, then anybody can invest in it. So yeah, this I just picked an example to show an ETF out there, 128 million of net assets, and then 20.2% or 20 basis points their expense ratio. So it could be a team of people running this or one or two people, I don't know, but that's how much money they make. And it's usually not too much work to run these things if you have things set up in a proper way. You can automate a lot of stuff. But there is a prospectus, and it says the parameters for the fund. I don't know why this is taking so long, but okay. But what I suggest, if you invest in any of these types of assets, whether it's a mutual fund or ETF, just look into the portfolio to see what's in there. Sometimes there's nothing in there. It's just options contracts, and I would avoid that like the plague. So what do they invest $128 million in? Well, we know you get a yield of 1.5%, so that's your return, your dividend. They hold 226 stocks. It's pretty much all long investments. They don't really hold any cash. Most of it North America. Most of it is probably U.S. Yeah, 97% U.S. stocks, which makes sense. So 1.4% of the portfolio is UMB, the bank. UMB it's It's a region. I think it's a regional bank in Missouri. Yeah, it's not a. But that's what you're investing in, small cap. That's why you put money into this ETF, because you want exposure to small cap. So they do. It looks like they have a lot into banks. Is that the way to go? Well, for them it is, I guess. Atlantic Union Bank shares, BlackRock, Treasury, Solaris Energy Infrastructure, SkyWest, the airline, Eastern Bank shares, TTM Technologies, Aris Water Solutions. So they do have quite a bit of exposure to banks. So it looks like they started this fund in 2020. Here's the portfolio manager. I mean, let me know how I can join the stream. Well, anybody can join the stream. Click on this link, but I know people are shy. But I'm more than happy to have anybody, even if you don't know anything about the stock market or financials, is a good way to learn. But yeah, click on that. On that link. I should get a pop-up when you click the link. Okay, so I'm just showing you guys how to look at an ETF. But how do you start an ETF? That's why actually my friend, he's a hedge fund lawyer. Because when Victor said we should start a hedge fund, I was like, let's just talk to my buddy. He actually went to my wedding, but it's been a long time since I've spoken to him. He represents alternative investment funds, including hedge fund, private equity, and venture capital funds, and their sponsors, managers, and investors, a broad range of matters relating to structuring, formation, corporate governance. His clients include SEC and state registered investment advisors, commodity pool operators, broker-dealers based in foreign jurisdictions. So yeah, so we'll find out like the process. You'd be surprised. Starting a company is not as. Victor, did you get that? That link? You click on this link. If you want to join the stream, I think that's all you got to do. Unless I'm missing something else. Okay, it works. Okay. I think.
Hey, Scott.
Okay, you're on. Okay, got it. What's going on? So I'm talking to people each stream about your idea of starting a hedge fund, which is kind of cool because I've researched so many of these types of things, like starting this type of business, that type of business, and oftentimes I don't go through with it, but I learn a lot in the process. So whether we do it or not, it's just learning. So what's going on? Any updates or anything?
No, just I'm glad that we're looking into it. One of the reasons why I'm looking into it is, one of the reasons why I manage my stocks and my investments is for a long time I've bought mutual funds and kind of let them ride. I focused on making more money professionally. I made money in real estate, but I realized that a lot of those fund managers underperformed the market and I was paying them. So it's like, that's ridiculous. And I didn't have a lot of visibility in what they were doing. They said a lot of fancy words, but really didn't perform well. So
it's true.
I followed you for multiple years. I've gotten to know you quite well. I think people have followed me for a long time. And I thought, hey, having a ETF or some type of fund where you get to know the investors that are managing the fund, that are actively on YouTube, talking about the market, talking about investments, why, a particular investment is in the portfolio. I think that fits where we're at now, right? Which is very transparent, very grassroots. You get to know the investors really well. You don't have to invest a ton of money. Maybe you invest $1,000, maybe invest $10,000, however much would be reasonable. But if we got like 100, 200 investors, that would probably make up a pretty good portfolio. And I know it might be the beginning of something new, which is forget Wall Street. The reason why those big firms have big, tall buildings that are clad with marble and they make a lot of money is because they're making the money off the investors. They're doing very little to earn a fee. They don't even have to perform. Most investors, and I do this on my channel, I track their performance and they're underperforming the S&P. Well, that's like the worst of both worlds. You're losing money on the market and you're paying somebody to lose the money for you.
It's true. It's so true. And I can't believe I paid people at one point. I don't know why, because I knew about stocks my whole life, and I just thought it's what you're supposed to do. And then I'm like, they're not even giving me a good return.
Right.
Like I remember like somebody giving me a 5% return over a number of years.
And here's the thing is
market.
The worst case.
And I'm paying them a 1%. So I only get 4% out of it.
The thing that I'm after is knowledge, and year over year, I want to get better. And year over year, I want to make more money, right? Those are very simple, right? So the knowledge piece is quite doable. I just have to visit channels like yours, read some books, follow investors that I respect, learn my own lessons on investments that I made and so forth. And I think the typical investor, not only should you get a good rate of return from whoever's managing a portion of your portfolio, but you should also be receiving a good knowledge base. Like you should be receiving some good lessons along the way. Like, hey, remember we decided to buy into Meta 2.5 years ago. Well, look at the stock now. And that's a success story. But maybe we all jumped into Pfizer. Pfizer hasn't been a great investment, and we learn our lessons on that one. And at the end of it, we're all better investors. We're making more money. And I think it'd be a far better experience and relationship with investors and somebody who's managing an ETF. It'd be very transparent. It wouldn't be Wall Street where they say a bunch of fancy words and say nothing. It's like, geez, just show me performance or tell me why your investment, like in the case of Pfizer, didn't work. And I could try to explain why Pfizer didn't work, or I could explain why Robinhood has worked. Robinhood has worked really well for these reasons. Then we all learn together.
Yeah, because it's almost like a waste when you whether you make or lose money and you don't learn anything. It's like, how can you improve, or how can you avoid that mistake, or how can you capitalize on? But if you let someone else do it, like, yeah, you never get much out of it. And
yes.
And like, these guys, it's a joke because they know what they're doing. They just want to collect their fee, their 1% fee, regardless of how you do. And oftentimes you don't even make it. Like I remember like there was a just kind of rounding, but I remember I got a return of like 5%, and then they always try to justify, you would have gotten this if you did this and that and that. And I paid them a 1% fee, and I'm like, if I just put in the S&P 500, I would have like almost doubled, actually more than doubled the return. And why did I invest in investment? Why did I use the investment advisor? Because I thought they had this knowledge. But now that I kind of understand it better, now I understand that they don't really have much knowledge.
Nope.
It's all kind of like just talk.
It's a lot of mediocre people making a lot of money, and I think investors like you and I are aware of that, and we're like, forget that. If let's say we have a bad year like 2022, there were a lot of lessons in 2022. I outperformed the market, but it was still a tough year. But if I just go ETFs and mutual funds and have these mediocre people that make a lot of money involved, I don't learn anything. Well, hell, the return, of course, is a dollar and cents thing. I want to make as much money as I can, but it should also be, what were the lessons of 2022, right? And there were a lot of good lessons. What were the lessons of 2023? What were the lessons of 2024? Year to date, what are the lessons year to date? And that piece there, I think, to the active, more advanced investor that wants to be part of a, basically like, if you think about Reddit or Discord, right? It's very like group thinking in a positive way, which is you get different opinions on a topic, but maybe if like 10 people have a comment and 7 or 8 out of 10 all agree that, hey, this is probably what's going to happen. There's a lot of value in that. And I think if you have an ETF that has that type of engagement with the investors, it would be, if anything, very interesting and a very good educational opportunity for people. And it could be wildly successful in the beginning of something new, because the world that I grew up in 40 years ago, we didn't have internet. We didn't have access to endless information on stocks. We didn't have access to easy, low cost trades. I mean, it was difficult. It cost a lot to do one trade. So with that, I think it's a wave of something new that we could be a part of. Now, I don't want to kind of like be on the bleeding edge, so to speak, and do a lot of work that doesn't amount to much. Let's do our homework. Let's try to figure out how we can potentially do this and offer it, and see what people think about it. I'd love to see the chat fill up with comments on people's just good and bad, what you think of this idea. Do you think it'd work? I'd love to see that type of chat.
Yeah. And the upfront costs, I guess we'll find out more on Monday when we talk to the lawyer. This is how much to start an ETF. This is probably really general though. 100 to 500K. The lower end is plain vanilla funds. But usually when you get up and running with any business, it's the costs aren't that high generally, unless you do a lot of marketing, things like that. But once you get up and running, then hopefully it's just really maintenance. But the hardest part, I think, with this is, finding investors. And the best way to find investors is to have good results, because then they'll find you. But initially, you do have to find. This says about 200,000 a year to run and properly oversee the fund, which isn't too bad, because if you have enough invested, that should be covered.
Yeah,
those are the basics. But yeah, it would be really interesting to just learn about it, and because I've done different businesses before, and I've lost quite a bit of money in some businesses, but the money I made in other businesses
Right.
was fine, but I learned from those situations.
Yeah, same here. So I started some businesses and they were like 100% losses, and then I started a business and made a couple $1,000,000. So that was cool. But you
yeah,
got to start. Maybe you have to start a couple businesses before you hit the good one.
I know. Hopefully, the next one will be the big one. I wasn't even sure if I would do another business ever again, but this sounds too good to be true. Like at least too good to like not at least do some homework on. And
Yeah. Yeah, and I see some comments where a stock club. Yeah, I get that. That's kind of an old kind of topic. It's an old paradigm or idea. I appreciate the idea. I think I think we're moving into like Robinhood, right? Robinhood doesn't follow the rules that old brokerage firms follow, and that's why I invested in them. I'm like, you know what? Robinhood, if anything, objects to the status quo and to the whole mediocre people making lots of money concept. They're like, no, let's empower the individual investor to go invest their money, learn and make money. And they've been really successful because investors have been successful. If you would have bought into crypto 5 years ago, you're sitting pretty. And Wall Street 5 years ago said crypto's dangerous, it's terrible. Well, they were totally wrong. Mediocre people telling you how to invest in crypto is a really bad idea. And I can go on and on. So I think what will be the next generation of ETFs or investment types will be grassroots investors that you get to know quite clearly. Like when you invest with some investors that do like short selling, and I don't invest in short sellers, they really involve their investors because they have to. They're like, okay, this is why I'm shorting this stock, and they share their their thesis and what they're going to do. And that transparency already exists. We just have to turn it and say, this is why I think, for example, one of my buys right now is Meta. I continue to buy Meta shares, and I can explain why. And I can go through discounted free cash flows as I see them. You can go through discounted free cash flows as you see them. We don't have to agree. We should have differences in how we view the world. But collectively, I think we can be better at investing in Meta and other companies. And that transparency, I already show that transparency on my channel. You already show it on your channel. It's about having a different experience for investors. That I have a lot of viewers that say, I want to invest, but there's reluctance out of lack of confidence, lack of knowledge. They don't want to make mistakes that could really cost them, but they want to learn, which is great. So they're in the right position. And this could just be two things. One, an acceleration to make money, and an acceleration for them to learn and be involved. Like, okay, this is why the fund is investing in, fill in the blank, and see how the fund goes, have like a good cycle, like every month, do a portfolio review. On YouTube, you can, close the channel to only members. On Discord, you can close it to just members. If you're an investor, then you would be a member. Those kinds of things already exist. So why do these ETFs and fund managers continue to operate like we were operating 40 years ago? It's because they want to keep us from the details that would expose the fact that they're not very good, and they're losing a lot of money, and they're charging us money to put our money, at their firms.
Yeah, no, it's true. And there's not much transparency sometimes, and you like, what are they doing? Look at this. I just Googled highest expense ratios. There's a ETF that charges 18%. Is that crazy?
It is.
And they
How's that possible?
They only have 76 million of assets. and they've been around only a few months, but it's barely up. I guess people just don't look at this stuff because
They don't.
How could you charge 18%? The way hedge funds usually work is they charge like a 2% management fee, but they charge 20% of profits. So only if you profit. If you don't profit, they don't make that 20%. Daryl mentioned he's not into pooled money. So he wants his money to be used for his particular portfolio, and everybody's kind of separate, which I understand. Some people don't like pooled money.
Hey, you know what's cool about starting something is we don't have to follow the status quo. It's like, think about the outcome we want, right? What is it we want in the end, right? And make it simple and clear. Higher returns, access to knowledge that'll empower us to be better investors. So when we wake up 5 years from now, we're better. We're way better. So the returns have to be there, right? We can't like start a fund or start whatever it ends up being, and then it underperforms. But what if it overperforms and then everybody else is along for the ride? That would be very popular. That would be extremely popular.
Yeah, that's the main thing is performance. If you perform well, a lot of people will be interested. It doesn't matter. I mean, the fees are and things of that nature, marketing, but it's all about performance is really going to drive the results.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this 20% fee company.
So Monday, you and I will talk to the attorney. We'll kind of get his thoughts, and then I'd like to not only talk to that attorney, but maybe expand knowledge and kind of think outside the box, because what I don't want to do is, hey, we get an instruction set that is like, hey, this is how they've been doing it for the last 100 years. It's like, well, I don't want to start a business that's been run for 100 years. That's a terrible business. A lot of competition, a lot of like loopholes that we have to follow. Is there a different way where we can achieve the objective we want, which is, hey, you have this whatever, this fund or this thing, this entity that people can get involved with, and it achieves the goals, which is higher returns, knowledge, a gateway to knowledge, and you become a better investor. Those are the principles that we should have, and we'll see where that ends up. It might be less official, or not official, but organized like a fund. But maybe this has legs as a Discord channel where maybe for the first year we can have, just a fund that everybody follows, and we kind of crowd vote on what shares ought to be held by the fund to some extent. We don't want to get caught up in like bureaucracy, but let's think of all ideas and see where we go.
Yeah. Crowdfunding. That's another interesting, there's a lot of websites where people can put as little as like $10, and then that money is used for. I did that. I can't remember what company. I did a while ago, like over 10 years ago, and because people were looking for funds for like to pay off their credit card or to buy a new car, and each person had their profile, and you would get like the returns were great. Some of them were like 15% interest on it, but a lot of people defaulted. So it turned out I ended up with like a 2 or 3% return after defaults. But that's a little different. There's a lot of avenues we could think about. There's the hedge fund route, ETFs, crowdfunding, but something different. Like you said, like it doesn't have to be the way it's been done, as long as it's within the legal framework. We can do it. We can do our own approach.
Yeah, it has to be absolutely legal and above board. But again, I don't want to invent something that was invented 50 years ago. That'd just be a terrible idea. We're just trying to make marginal improvements to the status quo. What I want is something new that's like, hey, like YouTube, right? When I wanted to learn more about investing, I read Warren Buffett's book 30 years ago. I read Benjamin Graham's book 30 years ago. Peter Lynch, 35 years ago. So the knowledge was kind of there, but putting it to work like on a weekly basis, that wasn't available 35 years ago, but it's totally available today through YouTube, Discord, Reddit. It's there. You can kind of pick a tribe that you believe in, measure performance, always measure performance to make sure you're following somebody who really knows what they're doing, and then get involved.
Yeah, and it may evolve to something besides this investment platform. It may evolve to more educational, and who knows. But it's sometimes you start something for one purpose, like some successful companies start something for a purpose, and then they do something totally different because something else is much more profitable, and which I didn't realize. Like kind of like if you start a company to make cars, but then you realize like it's much more efficient just to build charging stations. I don't know. Yeah, so you can outperform. Only 4 hedge funds beat the S&P in 2024. That's funny. I wonder if that's person just doing this for clicks. That's hard to believe. Only 4 hedge funds beat the S&P in 2024.
Well, right now I'm tracking 16 of popular super investors, and let me open up my ranking, and I think like 4 or 5 that I see on that list are outperforming the S&P year to date.
The reason I'm not too keen on a hedge fund is because it does really limit the people who can invest, because you have to be a accredited investor. So generally, if you run a hedge fund, you might have just like 20 investors into the fund because there's only so many people, which I'm not saying is a bad thing, but I think we're looking for something more of the masses. We're trying to get information out there and trying to, but but I'm not sure actually. We're kind of just talking about it now, but if I had to pick between those two, I would say ETF. But
yeah, I'd want it to be easy, and you can, like, minimum investment should be like $1,000. It shouldn't be like $10, because then somebody who can only invest $10 shouldn't be investing in stocks. They should focus on improving their skills to make more money. That's what they should be focused on. Somebody who can invest $1,000 maybe is somebody who's 25 and is working, and so forth.
Yeah, absolutely. But I wonder how many ETFs beat. I bet you it's probably pretty low, probably like 20%. Have any funds beaten S&P 500? Yeah, but it's like investing. If there's a stock you really liked that did great, like we talk about Meta a lot, but if it could be like a Costco And if you happen to be real heavy on that, then you probably had a good year. Did you see Oracle? Oracle did
Yeah.
up
Yeah.
a lot today.
It's doing great.
Really, any other news for the day that I missed?
Well, I think Tesla was supposed to do their robotaxi launch today, right? In Austin. Did that happen?
I think so. I know they've been talking about it for 5 years now. Tesla slams on brakes, delays robotaxi roll. Okay, so maybe it's more delays. Everyday Texans will have to wait a little longer. The world's richest man has been teeing up the rollout of robotaxis for months. Yeah, so it looks like there's no more delays. Yeah. Tesla the other day.
So I'm actually that.
No, they had their biggest.
So I'm in Texas. I'm in Texas for other reasons, and I'm going to be in Austin this weekend. And I was in Austin this past weekend, and I saw a bunch of Waymos, like Waymos everywhere. But I'm going to go this weekend, and I'm going to see how many Tesla robotaxis I see. I didn't see any Tesla robotaxis because I thought they were supposed to be already testing them, like no people, no passengers. But a launch to me means they're going to get actual customers to ride, right? So I'll report firsthand what I see.
Yeah, but it looks like you're not going to see it. Waymo has been on it. They've been doing this now years, so they're way ahead of the game. That's why Google should be higher than it is, but it's so funny. Remember, every time
related story is in Los Angeles, they're burning.
What's that? Burning?
So in Los Angeles, unfortunately, they're burning some of the Waymo cars, which is sad.
They're burning them. Oh, because that's crazy. They just don't.
Of the riots and all that.
Oh, that's okay. I thought it was.
No, the reason they're burning them, I'm sure, is that there's nobody in there. There's no human being that's going to be hurt. So they just torch the Waymos. I'm sure Waymo adjusted and said, don't drive any cars in the bad areas. And no more cars have been burned. But I know a few days ago, there was a lot of Waymos put on the news that were being burned.
Yeah,
cool.
Yeah,
well, it's good to connect with you. I have to run. I have to go catch a flight.
Yeah.
But
I gotta get off.
I'm excited about what we're going to discover, and I appreciate you having me on the live stream.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, thanks a lot. Okay, everybody, I'm gonna sign off too. It's been a long one. Okay, I'll talk to you later. Thanks.